A young black boy returns a missing wallet to a white millionaire. Hours later, police show up at school. Before we dive into the story, let me ask, where in the world are you reading this from today? Drop a comment below. And if you love this story, don't forget to subscribe for more. Daniel Thompson woke up to the soft sound of his mother's voice. "Rise and shine, sweetheart," she called from the tiny kitchen of their modest apartment. The aroma of toast and eggs drifted through the air, making Daniel's stomach rumble as he rubbed the sleep from his eyes. He glanced around his small bedroom, where posters of his favorite basketball players hung on the walls, dreams pinned to peeling paint. He quickly slipped into his well-worn but clean school uniform, grateful for his mother's tireless effort to keep their clothes neat despite their tight budget. "Coming, Mom." Daniel called out, his voice bright with the cheerfulness that seemed to follow him everywhere. In the kitchen, he found his mother, Lisa, already dressed in her waitress uniform. Her tired eyes lit up when she saw her son, and she planted a kiss on his forehead. "Eat up, baby. You've got a big day ahead," she said. Daniel sat down at their small table, savoring every bite of the simple breakfast. "Thanks, Mom. It's delicious," he said, his smile revealing the gap where he'd recently lost a tooth. As they ate, Lisa reminded him of their family motto. "Remember, honey, it's not what we have but who we are that matters." Daniel nodded, his young face serious. "I know, Mom. I'll make you proud." After breakfast, Daniel grabbed his backpack and headed out. The streets of their neighborhood were already alive with activity. He waved to Mr. Johnson, the elderly man who always sat on his porch, and high-fived his best friend Jamal, who lived next door. As Daniel walked to school, he took in the familiar sights of his community, the corner store with its faded awning, the small park where kids played basketball after school, and the community center where his mother sometimes picked up extra shifts to make ends meet. Despite the worn-down look of some buildings, there was a warmth and vibrancy to the neighborhood that Daniel loved. That crisp autumn morning, Daniel's mind was on the upcoming math test. He kicked a pebble along the cracked sidewalk, muttering multiplication tables under his breath. The familiar sounds of his neighborhood surrounded him, the rumble of passing cars, the chatter of people heading to work, and the sweet smell from the corner bakery. Suddenly, something caught his eye, a dark object lying on the sidewalk just ahead, partially hidden by a fallen leaf. Curious, Daniel quickened his pace. As he got closer, he realized it was a wallet, sleek, black, and made of expensive-looking leather. Daniel's heart started to race. He glanced around, but no one seemed to be searching for a lost item. With gentle hands, he picked up the wallet, feeling its smooth surface. It was heavier than he expected, and he could tell it was full. "I should look inside," Daniel thought. "Maybe there's an ID or something that can help me find the owner." Carefully, he opened the wallet. His eyes widened as he saw several crisp $100 bills tucked neatly inside. He'd never seen so much money in one place before. But Daniel knew better than to focus on that. Instead, he searched for identification. In a clear plastic slot, he found a driver's license. The name on the card made Daniel's jaw drop, Thomas Carter. Daniel recognized the name immediately. Mr. Carter was a well-known businessman in their city, famous for his wealth and success. Daniel's mind raced. He knew Mr. Carter lived in the wealthy part of town, far from Daniel's humble neighborhood. What was his wallet doing here? And more importantly, what should Daniel do now? For a moment, he thought about all the things that money could buy: new shoes for school, a nice dinner for his hard-working mom, maybe even a basketball hoop for the neighborhood kids. But as quickly as those thoughts came, Daniel pushed them away. He remembered his mother's words, "It's not what we have but who we are that matters." With a deep breath, Daniel carefully closed the wallet and slipped it into his backpack. He knew what he had to do, even if it meant being late for school. Standing on the sidewalk, his backpack felt heavier than usual with Mr. Carter's wallet inside. He checked his watch and realized he was already late for school, but this was more important. The weight of the wallet seemed to press on his conscience. Daniel thought about his mom, how hard she worked to make ends meet. He imagined her face if he brought home all that money, her eyes would light up, and maybe she could finally take a day off from her 2 jobs. But then he remembered the lessons she'd taught him. Honesty is the best policy, she always said. Daniel could almost hear her voice in his head, gently guiding him. He opened his eyes, a determined look on his face. He knew what he had to do. It didn't matter that Mr. Carter was rich or that Daniel's family could use the money. What mattered was doing the right thing. Taking a deep breath, Daniel turned around, heading in the opposite direction of his school. He knew Mr. Carter's company was downtown, about a mile away. It would be a long walk, but Daniel was determined. As he walked, Daniel thought about what he'd say when he got there. Would Mr. Carter be angry that Daniel had opened the wallet? Would he even believe that a kid from this neighborhood was returning it instead of keeping it? Daniel's palms began to sweat, but he kept walking. He passed stores opening for the day, people rushing to work, and buses rumbling down the street. A few people gave him curious looks, probably wondering why a young boy wasn't in school, but Daniel didn't care what anyone thought. He knew in his heart he was doing the right thing. His mom would be proud of him, and that mattered more than anything else. As he approached the towering skyscraper that housed Mr. Carter's office, Daniel felt his heart racing. The building seemed to touch the sky, its glass windows reflecting the morning sun. It was a far cry from the small brick buildings in his neighborhood. He stood at the entrance, taking in the bustling scene around him. Well-dressed men and women hurried past, their shoes clicking on the polished sidewalk. Sleek cars pulled up, dropping off important-looking people. Daniel felt out of place in his worn sneakers and second-hand jacket. Taking a deep breath, Daniel pushed open the heavy glass door and stepped inside. The lobby was enormous, with high ceilings and shiny marble floors. A giant chandelier hung overhead, sparkling like 1,000 stars. Daniel had never seen anything like it before. He approached the reception desk, his steps echoing in the vast space. The receptionist, a woman with perfectly styled hair, looked up at him with surprise. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice polite but puzzled. Daniel swallowed hard. "I'm here to see Mr. Thomas Carter," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The receptionist's eyebrows shot up. "Do you have an appointment?" Daniel shook his head. "No, ma'am, but I found his wallet, and I need to return it to him." The woman's expression softened. She looked at Daniel with a mix of surprise and admiration. "That's very honest of you, young man. Let me see what I can do." As she made a phone call, Daniel looked around the lobby. Everything seemed so clean and new, so different from his neighborhood, where buildings were old and worn. He thought about his mom, imagining how out of place she'd feel here, just like he did. A few minutes later, the receptionist hung up the phone. "Mr. Carter will see you," she said with a smile. "Take the elevator to the 30th floor. His assistant will meet you there." Daniel nodded, his nervousness returning as he walked toward the elevator. As he rode up, watching the floor numbers climb higher and higher, he couldn't help but think about how far he was from home, not just in distance, but in a whole different world. When the elevator doors opened on the 30th floor, Daniel stepped out into a world of luxury. The hallway was lined with plush carpet, and the walls were adorned with expensive-looking paintings. He felt small and out of place, his worn sneakers sinking into the soft floor. A smartly dressed woman approached him with a warm smile. "You must be the young man who found Mr. Carter's wallet," she said kindly. "I'm his assistant, Miss Parker. Please follow me." Daniel nodded, unable to find his voice. He followed Miss Parker down the hallway, passing offices with glass walls and sleek furniture. The click of her heels on the floor echoed in the quiet space. They stopped in front of a large wooden door. Miss Parker knocked gently before opening it. "Mr. Carter, the young man who found your wallet is here," she announced. Daniel's heart pounded as he stepped into the office. It was bigger than his entire apartment, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a breathtaking view of the city. Behind a massive desk sat Mr. Thomas Carter, a distinguished-looking man in his 50s. Mr. Carter stood up, his eyes fixed on Daniel. "So, you're the honest young man who found my wallet," he said, his voice deep and authoritative. Daniel's hands trembled as he reached into his backpack and pulled out the wallet. "Yes, sir," he said softly. "I found it on the sidewalk this morning. I knew I had to return it to you." Mr. Carter walked around his desk and approached Daniel. He took the wallet, examining it carefully. "Everything seems to be in order," he said, looking back at Daniel with curiosity. "What's your name, son?" "Daniel Thompson, sir," Daniel replied, his voice barely above a whisper. Mr. Carter's eyebrows raised slightly. "Daniel," he repeated, as if testing the name. "Tell me, Daniel, why did you decide to return the wallet? There was quite a bit of cash in here." Daniel looked up at Mr. Carter, his eyes wide with sincerity. "It was the right thing to do, sir. My mom always taught me to be honest, no matter what." Mr. Carter's eyes softened as he listened to Daniel's words. He walked back to his desk and sat down, gesturing for Daniel to take a seat in one of the plush leather chairs opposite him. "That's quite admirable, Daniel," Mr. Carter said, his tone thoughtful. "Not many people would have done what you did." Daniel sat down, his feet barely touching the floor. He felt small in the enormous chair, but Mr. Carter's kind words made him sit up a little straighter. "I appreciate your honesty," Mr. Carter continued. He opened a drawer in his desk and pulled out a checkbook. "I'd like to offer you a reward for your integrity." Daniel's eyes widened, and he shook his head quickly. "Oh, no, sir, I can't accept that," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "I didn't bring the wallet back for a reward. I did it because it was the right thing to do." Mr. Carter paused, his pen hovering over the checkbook. He looked at Daniel with a mixture of surprise and respect. "Are you sure? This is a substantial amount of money. It could help you and your family." Daniel thought about his mom, working long hours to make ends meet. For a moment, he was tempted, but then he remembered her words, "Honesty isn't a trade, Daniel. It's who we are." With a deep breath, Daniel looked Mr. Carter in the eye. "I'm sure, sir. Thank you for the offer, but I can't take money for doing what's right." Mr. Carter leaned back in his chair, studying Daniel with newfound interest. "Well, Daniel Thompson," he said, a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth, "you've certainly given me something to think about today." He stood up and extended his hand to Daniel. "Thank you for returning my wallet. Your honesty is refreshing and admirable." Daniel stood too, shaking Mr. Carter's hand with a firm grip, just as his mom had taught him. "You're welcome, sir," he said, a small smile on his face. "I'm just glad I could help." Daniel left Mr. Carter's office, his heart light and his steps buoyant. The grand building that had intimidated him earlier now seemed less imposing. As he stepped out onto the busy street, he took a deep breath, feeling proud of the choice he'd made. The walk back to school was long, but Daniel didn't mind. He replayed the conversation with Mr. Carter in his head, reassuring himself that he'd done the right thing. His mom's words echoed in his mind, and he smiled, knowing she'd be proud of him. As Daniel approached the school, he glanced at his watch and realized how late he was. His stomach tightened with worry. He'd never been late before, and he didn't want to disappoint his teacher. With a deep breath, Daniel pushed open the heavy school doors and made his way to his classroom. He paused outside, gathering his courage, then knocked softly. "Come in," Mrs. Johnson's voice called from inside. Daniel entered the room, his cheeks flushing as all eyes turned to him. Mrs. Johnson looked at him with surprise and concern. "Daniel, this isn't like you to be late," she said, her brow furrowed. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Johnson," Daniel said, his voice steady despite his nerves. "I found a wallet on my way to school this morning, and I had to return it to the owner." Mrs. Johnson's expression softened. You returned a wallet? That was very responsible of you, Daniel. Can you tell us more about what happened? Daniel nodded, feeling a little more at ease. He stood at the front of the class and began to explain his morning adventure. As he spoke, he noticed his classmates listening intently, their eyes wide with interest. And that's why I'm late, Daniel finished, looking at Mrs. Johnson apologetically. A smile spread across Mrs. Johnson's face. Daniel, thank you for sharing that with us. What you did today was incredibly honest and brave. Class, don't you think Daniel set a wonderful example for all of us? The class erupted in applause, and Daniel felt his cheeks grow warm. He hadn't expected this reaction. As he made his way to his seat, his classmates patted him on the back and whispered words of admiration. Daniel smiled shyly, grateful for their support but also a bit overwhelmed by the attention. As the day went on, Daniel found his thoughts drifting back to the morning's events. The image of Mr. Carter's surprised face when he returned the wallet kept popping into his mind. But Daniel shook his head, trying to focus on the math problem in front of him. He didn't want his good deed to distract him from his studies. During lunch, his friends peppered him with questions about the wallet and Mr. Carter. Daniel answered honestly but briefly, not wanting to make a big deal out of it. It was just the right thing to do, he said with a shrug, biting into his sandwich. In the afternoon, as Mrs. Johnson explained a new science concept, Daniel caught himself daydreaming about the tall office building and the busy streets of the city center. He blinked hard and forced himself to concentrate on the lesson. He knew his mom would want him to pay attention in class, no matter what had happened earlier. As the final bell rang, Daniel packed up his backpack, feeling a mix of emotions. He was proud of what he'd done, but he also felt a bit strange about all the attention. He just wanted things to go back to normal. Walking home, Daniel thought about telling his mom what had happened. He knew she'd be proud of him, and the thought made him smile. But as he approached their apartment building, he decided he wouldn't make a big fuss about it. He'd tell her, of course, but he'd keep it simple. Daniel climbed the stairs to their apartment, his backpack heavy with homework. He took a deep breath before opening the door, ready to greet his mom and start his usual after-school routine. The events of the morning began to feel like a distant memory as he focused on the familiar comfort of home and the tasks ahead. Back in his plush office, Mr. Thomas Carter sat behind his mahogany desk, lost in thought. The events of the morning kept replaying in his mind. He couldn't shake the image of young Daniel standing there in his worn clothes, holding out the wallet with such earnest determination. Mr. Carter picked up the leather wallet, running his fingers over its smooth surface. Inside was everything, his credit cards, his driver's license, and a substantial amount of cash, all returned without a single item missing. Incredible, he muttered to himself, shaking his head in amazement. What struck him most was Daniel's refusal of a reward. In a world where everyone seemed to be looking for personal gain, this young boy's actions stood out like a beacon of hope. Mr. Carter leaned back in his chair, his brow furrowed in concentration. He couldn't just let this go. Daniel's honesty and integrity deserved more than a simple thank you. There must be something I can do, he said aloud, tapping his fingers on the desk. He thought about Daniel's appearance, the slightly too small jacket, the scuffed shoes. It was clear the boy came from a modest background. Yet, despite what must be challenging circumstances, Daniel had chosen to do the right thing. Mr. Carter's mind raced with possibilities. He could offer Daniel's family financial assistance or perhaps set up a college fund for the boy. But something told him that Daniel wouldn't want charity. No, it had to be something more meaningful, something that would truly make a difference in Daniel's life without undermining the very values the boy had demonstrated. Mr. Carter sat up straight, an idea forming in his mind. He reached for his phone, a smile spreading across his face. He knew exactly what he needed to do. Mr. Carter dialed the local police station. After explaining the situation, he was connected to Officer Johnson, who listened intently to the story. "That's quite a remarkable young man," Officer Johnson said, his voice warm with admiration. "I'd be happy to help you locate his school." With the officer's assistance, Mr. Carter soon had the name and address of Daniel's school. He thanked the officer and hung up, feeling a surge of excitement. "Sarah," he called out to his assistant, "clear my afternoon schedule. I have an important visit to make." As the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the schoolyard, a police car and a sleek black sedan pulled up in front of Daniel's school. The sight of the vehicles immediately caught the attention of students peering out classroom windows, their curious whispers filling the air. Officer Johnson stepped out of his patrol car, followed by Mr. Carter emerging from his sedan. The unlikely pair made their way into the school, causing a ripple of excitement among the staff and students they passed. Inside Daniel's classroom, the teacher was in the middle of a math lesson when a knock on the door interrupted her. The principal, Mrs. Rodriguez, stepped in, her face a mix of seriousness and barely contained excitement. "Excuse me, Mrs. Davis," she said, addressing the teacher. "Could you please send Daniel Thompson to my office?" A hush fell over the classroom as all eyes turned to Daniel. The boy's heart began to race, his mind frantically searching for any wrongdoing he might have committed. He stood up slowly, his legs feeling wobbly beneath him. "Daniel," Mrs. Rodriguez added, her voice gentler now, "bring your things with you, please." As Daniel gathered his backpack, his classmates whispered and stared. Some looked concerned, others curious. Daniel's best friend, Jake, gave him a reassuring nod, but it did little to calm Daniel's nerves. Walking down the hallway beside Mrs. Rodriguez, Daniel's imagination ran wild. Had something happened to his mom? Was he in trouble for being late this morning? The sight of the police car outside hadn't escaped his notice, and it only added to his worry. As they approached the office, Daniel could see through the glass partition that there were several adults inside, including a police officer. His heart pounded even harder in his chest, and he felt a lump forming in his throat. Mrs. Rodriguez placed a comforting hand on Daniel's shoulder before opening the door. "It's okay, Daniel," she said softly. "You're not in any trouble." Daniel stepped into the office, his eyes wide as he took in the scene before him. There, standing next to Officer Johnson, was Mr. Carter, the man whose wallet he had returned that morning. Mr. Carter's face broke into a warm smile as he saw Daniel, and for a moment, Daniel forgot to breathe. Daniel's heart raced as he entered the principal's office. His palms were sweaty, and he could feel his legs trembling beneath him. The sight of Mr. Carter, Officer Johnson, and Mrs. Rodriguez all looking at him made his stomach churn with anxiety. "Please have a seat, Daniel," Mrs. Rodriguez said gently, gesturing to a chair in front of her desk. Daniel sat down, his mind whirling with possibilities. Had he done something wrong by returning the wallet? Maybe he should have just given it to a teacher instead. Or perhaps Mr. Carter had accused him of taking something from the wallet before returning it. As the adults exchanged glances, Daniel's imagination ran wild. He thought about his mom and how disappointed she'd be if he got into trouble. Tears began to well up in his eyes, and he blinked rapidly, trying to hold them back. Am I in trouble?" Daniel finally managed to squeak out, his voice barely above a whisper. Mr. Carter stepped forward, his brow furrowed with concern. "Oh, no, Daniel, not at all," he said quickly. "I'm sorry if we frightened you. That wasn't our intention." Officer Johnson nodded in agreement. "You're not in any trouble, son. Quite the opposite, actually." Despite their reassurances, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling of dread that had settled in his stomach. He looked from face to face, trying to read their expressions, searching for any sign that they might be hiding something from him. Mrs. Rodriguez moved closer, kneeling beside Daniel's chair. "Daniel, honey, take a deep breath," she said softly. "I know this must be scary for you, but I promise you're not in any trouble. We just want to talk to you about what happened this morning." Daniel took a shaky breath, his mind still racing. He couldn't understand why they needed a police officer present just to talk about the wallet. Was there more to this situation than he realized? Had he unknowingly done something wrong? As the adults began to explain, Daniel sat rigid in his chair, his heart pounding so loudly he could barely hear their words. All he could focus on was the fear coursing through his body and the desperate hope that whatever was happening, it wouldn't disappoint his mom or get him into trouble. Daniel sat in the principal's office, his small frame dwarfed by the large chair. His eyes darted nervously between Mr. Carter, Officer Johnson, and Mrs. Rodriguez. The tension in the room was palpable, and Daniel's heart raced so fast he thought it might burst out of his chest. Unable to bear the silence any longer, Daniel blurted out, "I didn't steal anything, I swear." His voice cracked, and tears began to well up in his eyes. "I just wanted to help. I found the wallet and thought it was right to return it. I'm sorry if I did something wrong. Mr. Carter's eyes widened in surprise, and he quickly moved to reassure the frightened boy. "No, Daniel, you didn't do anything wrong," he said gently, kneeling down to meet Daniel's eye level. Officer Johnson stepped forward, his face softening. "Son, you're not in any trouble. We're here because of your good deed, not because you did anything wrong." Mrs. Rodriguez reached out and patted Daniel's trembling hand. "Daniel, honey, take a deep breath. Everything is okay. Mr. Carter wanted to thank you properly for returning his wallet." Daniel's brow furrowed in confusion. He looked at each adult in turn, trying to process their words. But why is there a police officer here?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Officer Johnson smiled kindly. "I'm here to help recognize your honesty, Daniel. What you did was very admirable, and we want to make sure you know that." As the adults continued to explain, Daniel's rigid posture began to relax slightly. The fear that had gripped him so tightly started to loosen its hold. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand, sniffling softly. "You mean I'm not in trouble?" Daniel asked hesitantly, still struggling to believe it. Mr. Carter shook his head, a warm smile spreading across his face. "Not at all, Daniel. In fact, we're here to thank you and celebrate your integrity." Mr. Carter's warm smile spread across his face as he looked at Daniel, the boy's eyes still glistening with unshed tears watching him cautiously. Mr. Carter took a deep breath and began to explain. "Daniel," he said gently, "we're here for a very special reason, and it's all because of you." Daniel's brow furrowed in confusion. He glanced at Officer Johnson and Mrs. Rodriguez, who both nodded encouragingly. Mr. Carter continued, "You see, when you returned my wallet this morning, I was touched by your honesty. It's not every day that someone finds a wallet full of money and decides to return it without expecting anything in return." Daniel's shoulders relaxed a bit, but he still looked puzzled. "But, sir," he said softly, "isn't that what anyone would do?" Mr. Carter chuckled warmly. "You'd be surprised, Daniel. Your actions show a level of integrity that's rare and should be celebrated." Officer Johnson stepped forward. "That's right, son. Mr. Carter asked for our help to find your school. We weren't here to get you in trouble. We wanted to make sure we found the right Daniel Thompson." Mrs. Rodriguez added, "Mr. Carter wanted to thank you properly, Daniel. He thought it was important to recognize your good deed in front of your classmates and teachers." Daniel's eyes widened in surprise. "Really?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Mr. Carter nodded, his eyes twinkling. "Really, Daniel. What you did deserves recognition. Your honesty and integrity are qualities that should be celebrated and encouraged." As the reality of the situation sank in, a small smile began to form on Daniel's face. The fear that had gripped him earlier started to melt away, replaced by a warm feeling of pride and relief. "So," Mr. Carter said, clapping his hands together, "if you're okay with it, we'd like to gather your classmates and teachers for a special assembly. We want everyone to know about your wonderful act of kindness and honesty." Daniel's heart raced as he stood in front of the packed school assembly. The gymnasium buzzed with excitement, students whispering and craning their necks to see what was happening. Mr. Carter stood beside Daniel, his hand resting gently on the boy's shoulder. "Students and teachers," Mr. Carter began, his voice booming through the microphone, "we're here today to celebrate an extraordinary act of honesty and integrity." He recounted the story of how Daniel had found and returned his wallet. As he spoke, Daniel felt his cheeks grow warm with a mix of embarrassment and pride. He glanced at his mother, who sat in the front row, her eyes shining with tears of joy. "Daniel's actions touched me deeply," Mr. Carter continued. "In a world where it's easy to look the other way or think only of oneself, Daniel chose to do the right thing. And that, my friends, deserves recognition." The gymnasium fell silent, all eyes on Mr. Carter and Daniel. "That's why I've decided to do something special," Mr. Carter announced, his voice filled with emotion. "I want to ensure that Daniel's future is as bright as his character." Daniel's eyes widened, his heart pounding in his chest. "I'm going to sponsor Daniel's education all the way through college," Mr. Carter declared. A collective gasp echoed through the gym, followed by thunderous applause. Daniel stood there, stunned, unable to believe what he was hearing. But Mr. Carter wasn't finished. "And that's not all," he said, raising his hand to quiet the crowd. "In honor of Daniel's integrity, I am establishing the Daniel Thompson Scholarship Fund. This fund will provide opportunities for other young people who demonstrate the same kind of honesty and character that Daniel has shown." The gymnasium erupted in cheers. Daniel's classmates jumped to their feet, clapping and shouting his name. Daniel's mother rushed forward, enveloping him in a tight hug, her tears of joy wetting his shoulder. As the noise died down, Mr. Carter turned to Daniel. "Your small act of kindness has created a ripple effect, Daniel. You've not only changed your own life but potentially the lives of many others. Never underestimate the power of doing the right thing." The gymnasium buzzed with excitement as the reality of Mr. Carter's announcement sank in. Principal Johnson, who had been standing off to the side, stepped forward with a look of awe on his face. He cleared his throat, his voice thick with emotion as he addressed the assembly. "Well, I think we can all agree that this is an extraordinary moment for our school," he said, beaming at Daniel. "Daniel, you've made us all proud today." The teachers seated in a row near the front exchanged amazed glances. Mrs. Rodriguez, Daniel's homeroom teacher, wiped a tear from her eye. She had always known Daniel was special, but this was beyond anything she could have imagined. As for the students, their initial shock quickly gave way to unbridled joy. Cheers and applause continued to ripple through the crowd. Daniel's classmates were on their feet, whooping and hollering his name. Even the older kids, who usually tried to act cool, were caught up in the excitement. "Daniel! Daniel! Daniel!" The chant started somewhere in the back and quickly spread throughout the gym. Amidst the chaos, Daniel stood there, overwhelmed by the outpouring of support. He had never been the center of attention like this before, and he didn't quite know how to react. His eyes darted around the room, taking in the smiling faces of his teachers and the excited grins of his fellow students. Mr. Thompson, the stern history teacher known for his no-nonsense attitude, surprised everyone by standing up and starting a slow clap. "This student," he said loudly, "is what true character looks like." The atmosphere in the gym had completely transformed. What had started as a tense and frightening situation for Daniel had turned into a celebration of his integrity. The air was filled with a palpable sense of pride and joy. As the cheering continued, Principal Johnson raised his hands, trying to calm the excited crowd. "All right, everyone, settle down," he said, though he couldn't keep the smile off his face. "I think it's safe to say that this is a day none of us will ever forget." As the excitement in the gymnasium began to settle, Principal Johnson's phone started buzzing incessantly. He stepped away to answer, his eyebrows raising in surprise as he listened to the caller. "It seems word travels fast," he announced, returning to the group. "The local news station wants to do a story on Daniel's act of kindness." Daniel's eyes widened in disbelief. He had never imagined his simple act of returning a wallet would lead to all this attention. Mr. Carter placed a reassuring hand on the boy's shoulder. "You deserve this recognition, Daniel," he said warmly. "Your honesty is something to be celebrated." Within an hour, the school's quiet environment was transformed into a flurry of activity. A news van pulled up outside, and reporters with cameras and microphones filed into the building. The principal's office became an impromptu interview room, with Daniel and Mr. Carter seated side by side. Sarah Chen, a popular local news anchor, smiled encouragingly at Daniel. "So, Daniel," she began, "can you tell us what went through your mind when you found Mr. Carter's wallet?" Daniel swallowed hard, his palms sweaty as he faced the camera. I just knew I had to return it," he said softly. "It was the right thing to do." As Daniel recounted his story, his confidence grew. Mr. Carter chimed in, describing his amazement at Daniel's integrity. The reporter listened intently, her eyes shining with admiration. Outside the office, students pressed their faces against the windows, trying to catch a glimpse of their suddenly famous classmate. Teachers gently shooed them away but couldn't hide their own pride and excitement. As the interviews wrapped up, Sarah turned to the camera with a bright smile. "In a world that often seems filled with negativity, young Daniel Thompson reminds us that honesty and integrity still exist." This is Sarah Chen, reporting from Lincoln Middle School, where a small act of kindness has made a big impact. As the news van pulled away from Lincoln Middle School, Daniel's mind raced with the events of the day. He couldn't wait to tell his mother about everything that had happened. When the final bell rang, he sprinted home, his backpack bouncing against his back with each step. Daniel burst through the front door of their small apartment, out of breath and eyes shining with excitement. "Mom! Mom!" he called out. His mother emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "Daniel, what's wrong, baby?" she asked, concern etched on her face. Daniel launched into the story, words tumbling out in a rush. He told her about returning Mr. Carter's wallet, the surprise visit to the school, and the scholarship. As he spoke, Lisa's expression shifted from worry to disbelief and finally to overwhelming pride. Tears welled up in Lisa's eyes as she listened. When Daniel finished, she pulled him into a tight hug. "Oh, Daniel," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion, "I'm so proud of you. So proud." Daniel buried his face in his mother's shoulder, feeling safe and loved. "I just did what you always taught me to do, Mom," he mumbled. Lisa held her son at arm's length, looking into his eyes. "You did the right thing, baby. You're growing into such a wonderful young man." Just then, there was a knock at the door. Lisa opened it to find Mrs. Cruz, their neighbor, standing there with a big smile on her face. "I just saw the news," Mrs. Cruz exclaimed. "Daniel, you're a hero." Word spread quickly through their tight-knit community. Soon, neighbors began gathering outside Daniel and Lisa's apartment, all eager to congratulate the young boy who had made them proud. Mr. Jenkins from the corner store brought a cake. The Patel family from across the street arrived with colorful balloons. Even grumpy old Mr. Simmons from the first floor showed up, a rare smile on his weathered face. The small apartment filled with laughter and chatter as neighbors squeezed in, patting Daniel on the back and praising his honesty. Daniel, overwhelmed by the attention, stuck close to his mother's side. As the impromptu celebration continued, Daniel found a quiet corner in the small living room. He sat on the worn armchair, his favorite spot for thinking, and watched as his neighbors chatted and laughed. The scene before him felt surreal, like something out of a dream. Daniel's mind wandered back to that morning when he'd found Mr. Carter's wallet. He remembered the weight of it in his hands, the brief moment of temptation when he saw the cash inside. But the thought of keeping it had vanished as quickly as it had come. Returning it had been as natural as breathing. Now, surrounded by the warmth and pride of his community, Daniel felt a mix of emotions. He was happy, of course, but also a little overwhelmed. Everyone was calling him a hero, but he didn't feel like one. He'd just done what his mom had always taught him was right. As he watched his mother move through the crowd, her eyes shining with pride, Daniel felt a twinge of something new, responsibility. People were looking at him differently now, expecting great things. The scholarship Mr. Carter had offered was a big deal, a chance for a better future, but it also felt like a lot of pressure. Daniel took a deep breath, trying to steady his racing thoughts. He knew nothing had really changed. He was still the same Daniel, just a kid who tried his best to do the right thing. The scholarship and the attention didn't change who he was inside. Still, he couldn't help but feel a little nervous. What if he couldn't live up to everyone's expectations? What if he let them down? As if sensing his turmoil, Lisa made her way over to Daniel. She knelt beside the armchair, placing a gentle hand on his arm. "You okay, baby?" she asked softly. Daniel nodded, managing a small smile. "Yeah, Mom, just thinking." Lisa squeezed his arm reassuringly. "Remember, Daniel, you don't have to be perfect. Just keep being you. That's more than enough." Her words washed over Daniel like a warm blanket, easing some of his worries. He nodded, feeling a bit lighter. Maybe he didn't have all the answers right now, but he knew he'd figure it out, one day at a time. In the days following the celebration, Mr. Carter found himself deeply moved by Daniel's act of kindness. He couldn't shake the image of the young boy's humble demeanor and unwavering integrity. As he sat in his spacious office, surrounded by the trappings of his success, Mr. Carter knew he had to do more than just offer a scholarship. With renewed purpose, he called his team of lawyers and financial advisors. "I want to set up a scholarship fund," he announced, his voice filled with determination. "Not just for Daniel, but for other children like him who show exceptional character." Over the next few weeks, Mr. Carter worked tirelessly to bring his vision to life. He pored over documents, made countless phone calls, and held meeting after meeting. The scholarship fund began to take shape, designed to reward not just academic achievement but also acts of kindness, honesty, and community service. But Mr. Carter didn't stop there. As he learned more about Daniel's neighborhood, he realized that a scholarship alone wasn't enough. These children needed more immediate support and opportunities. "We need to build a community center," he told his team one afternoon, "a place where kids can go after school, where they can learn, play, and grow." The idea quickly gained momentum. Mr. Carter envisioned a bright, welcoming space with a library, computer lab, and sports facilities. He wanted it to be a beacon of hope in the neighborhood, a place that could nurture the potential he saw in Daniel and other children like him. As the plans for the community center took shape, Mr. Carter felt a sense of excitement he hadn't experienced in years. He found himself visiting Daniel's neighborhood more often, talking to residents and local leaders to ensure the center would truly meet the community's needs. With each passing day, Mr. Carter's initial impulse to reward one boy's honesty was transforming into something much bigger. He was creating a legacy of kindness and opportunity that would impact countless lives for years to come. The day of the groundbreaking ceremony for the new community center arrived, bringing with it a sense of excitement and hope that swept through Daniel's neighborhood. The sun shone brightly, as if nature itself was celebrating this momentous occasion. Daniel stood nervously beside his mother, fidgeting with the collar of his new shirt. He still couldn't quite believe that all of this was happening because of him. His mom squeezed his hand reassuringly, her eyes brimming with pride. Mr. Carter arrived, looking dapper in a suit but with his sleeves rolled up, ready to dig in. He greeted Daniel and his mother warmly, then turned to shake hands with the community leaders who had gathered for the event. The crowd hushed as Mr. Carter stepped up to the microphone. "Today," he began, his voice ringing out clear and strong, "we're not just breaking ground on a building. We're laying the foundation for a brighter future." He went on to explain the center's mission to foster kindness and community spirit. "And who better to name it after," Mr. Carter said, smiling at Daniel, "than the young man whose act of honesty inspired it all." Daniel's eyes widened in surprise as Mr. Carter unveiled a sign reading, "The Daniel Thompson Community Center." The crowd erupted in applause, and Daniel felt his cheeks grow warm with a mix of embarrassment and pride. As the ceremony continued, local leaders took turns speaking about the impact the center would have on the neighborhood. Daniel listened intently, his heart swelling with each word of hope and gratitude. Finally, it was time for the symbolic groundbreaking. Mr. Carter handed Daniel a small, shiny shovel. "Would you do the honors?" he asked. With trembling hands, Daniel took the shovel. He looked out at the crowd, his neighbors, his teachers, even some of his classmates were there. Cameras flashed as he pushed the shovel into the soft earth and turned over the first scoop of dirt. The crowd cheered, and Daniel couldn't help but smile. As he stood there, shovel in hand, he realized that his simple act of returning a wallet had set off a chain of events that would change his community forever. As the applause died down, Mr. Carter turned to Daniel with a warm smile. "Daniel, would you like to say a few words?" he asked, gesturing toward the microphone. Daniel's eyes widened, and he felt his heart skip a beat. He hadn't expected to give a speech. His palms grew sweaty, and he glanced nervously at his mother. She nodded encouragingly, her eyes filled with love and pride. Taking a deep breath, Daniel stepped up to the microphone. The crowd fell silent, all eyes on the young boy who had started this incredible chain of events. For a moment, Daniel stood frozen, overwhelmed by the sea of faces before him. Then he remembered why he was there. He thought about the wallet, about doing the right thing, and suddenly the words came to him. "Hi, everyone," Daniel began, his voice shaky at first but growing stronger with each word. "I'm not used to speaking in front of so many people, but I want to thank you all for being here today." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "When I found Mr. Carter's wallet that day, I didn't think I was doing anything special. I just knew it was the right thing to do. My mom always taught me that even small acts of kindness can make a big difference." Daniel's eyes scanned the crowd, seeing nods of agreement and encouraging smiles. "I never imagined that returning a wallet would lead to all of this," he continued, gesturing at the construction site behind him. "It just goes to show that doing the right thing, no matter how small it might seem, can have a big impact." His voice grew more confident as he spoke from his heart. "This community center is going to help so many people, and I'm honored that it will bear my name. But really, it belongs to all of us. It's a reminder that we all have the power to make our community better, one small act at a time." Daniel's eyes met his mother's, and he saw tears of joy glistening in her eyes. "I want to thank my mom for always teaching me to do the right thing, and I want to thank Mr. Carter for his incredible generosity. But most of all, I want to thank everyone here for your support and for believing in the power of kindness." As Daniel finished his speech, the crowd erupted into applause once more. Mr. Carter patted him on the back, beaming with pride, while Daniel's mother rushed forward to envelop him in a tight hug. As the applause for Daniel's heartfelt speech died down, Mr. Carter stepped forward once again, his face beaming with pride and purpose. He placed a gentle hand on Daniel's shoulder and turned to address the gathered crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen," Mr. Carter began, his voice clear and strong, "I have one more announcement to make today. In honor of Daniel's incredible act of integrity, I am establishing a scholarship fund in his name." A murmur of excitement rippled through the audience. Daniel's eyes widened in surprise, and his mother gasped softly beside him. Mr. Carter continued, "The Daniel Thompson Integrity Scholarship will provide educational opportunities to students who demonstrate the same kind of honesty and moral courage that Daniel showed us all. Each year, we will select deserving students who have gone above and beyond in their commitment to doing what's right, no matter the circumstances." He paused, letting the news sink in. This scholarship will cover full tuition for college or vocational training, ensuring that these outstanding young individuals have the chance to further their education and become leaders in our community. Daniel stood there, stunned by the magnitude of what Mr. Carter was announcing. He felt a mix of emotions, pride, humility, and a sense of responsibility. His mother squeezed his hand, tears of joy streaming down her face. Mr. Carter went on to explain the details of the scholarship. We will be working closely with local schools to identify candidates who exemplify integrity in their daily lives. The scholarship will be open to students from all backgrounds, with a focus on those who might not otherwise have the means to pursue higher education. He turned to Daniel, his eyes twinkling. Daniel, your one act of honesty has now created a ripple effect that will change lives for years to come. This scholarship fund ensures that your legacy of integrity will continue to inspire and support others long into the future. The crowd erupted into applause once more, many wiping tears from their eyes. Daniel felt overwhelmed by the impact his simple act had created. He looked up at Mr. Carter, gratitude shining in his eyes, unable to find the words to express how he felt. The following Monday, Daniel returned to school, his heart pounding with a mix of excitement and nervousness. As he walked through the hallways, he noticed whispers and smiles from his classmates. Some even patted him on the back, congratulating him for his honesty. When the bell rang for the first period, instead of heading to their regular classes, all the students were directed to the school auditorium. Daniel followed the crowd, wondering what was happening. As he entered the auditorium, he was met with thunderous applause. The entire school, students, teachers, and staff, had gathered for a special assembly in his honor. Daniel's face flushed with embarrassment and pride as he realized this was all for him. The principal stood at the podium with a warm smile. "Today, we are here to celebrate one of our own," she began. "Daniel Thompson has shown us all what it means to have true integrity." Daniel sat in the front row, his hands fidgeting in his lap, as Mrs. Rodriguez recounted the story of how he had found and returned Mr. Carter's wallet. His classmates listened intently, many nodding in approval. "Daniel's actions remind us that even small acts of honesty can have a big impact," Mrs. Rodriguez continued. "He has brought honor not just to himself but to our entire school community." She then called Daniel to the stage. With shaky legs, he made his way up the steps. Mrs. Rodriguez presented him with a beautifully framed certificate of recognition. "This certificate is to honor Daniel Thompson for his outstanding display of integrity and honesty," she read aloud. The auditorium erupted in cheers and applause once again. Daniel stood there, holding the certificate, a mix of emotions washing over him. He felt proud yet humble, knowing that he had simply done what he believed was right. As the weeks turned into months, Daniel began to adjust to his newfound role in the community. The initial shock of sudden fame faded, replaced by a quiet determination to live up to the expectations placed upon him. At school, Daniel continued to excel in his studies. His teachers noticed a new spark of confidence in him, not born of arrogance, but of a deeper understanding of his own potential. He raised his hand more often in class, eager to share his thoughts and ideas. One day during lunch break, Daniel overheard some classmates talking about a local animal shelter that needed volunteers. Without hesitation, he approached them and asked how he could help. The following Saturday, Daniel found himself at the shelter, cleaning cages and walking dogs. The joy he felt in helping these animals was unlike anything he had experienced before. This first taste of community service ignited something in Daniel. He began seeking out more opportunities to give back. He joined the school's environmental club, participating in neighborhood cleanup drives on weekends. He volunteered at the community center that bore his name, helping younger kids with their homework. Daniel's mother watched her son's growth with pride and a touch of amazement. She had always known he was special, but seeing him blossom into a community leader at such a young age filled her heart with joy. As Daniel became more involved in various projects, he found himself inspiring others. His classmates, seeing his dedication, began to join him in his volunteer efforts. The ripple effect of his actions spread throughout the school and the neighborhood. Despite his busy schedule, Daniel never forgot the values that had led him to return Mr. Carter's wallet in the first place. He remained humble, always quick to deflect praise and redirect attention to the causes he cared about. One evening, as Daniel sat at the dinner table with his mother, she asked him how he felt about all the changes in his life. Daniel thought for a moment before responding. "You know, Mom, at first I was scared. I didn't know if I could be what everyone wanted me to be. But then I realized I'm just being myself. I'm doing what you always taught me to do, to be kind and to help others. It feels good, and it feels right." As the months passed, Mr. Carter found himself drawn more and more to the community center he had helped create. What had started as a gesture of gratitude toward Daniel had blossomed into a genuine passion for making a difference in the lives of young people. Every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, Mr. Carter would leave his office early, trading his suit and tie for more casual attire, and head to the center. The children's faces would light up when they saw him walk through the doors, always ready with a kind word or a helping hand. Mr. Carter took a special interest in mentoring the youth at the center. He organized workshops on financial literacy, career planning, and entrepreneurship. His eyes would sparkle with enthusiasm as he shared his knowledge and experience with the eager young minds before him. But it was his relationship with Daniel that truly flourished. Mr. Carter saw in Daniel a reflection of his younger self, driven, compassionate, and full of potential. He took Daniel under his wing, guiding him not just in academics but in life lessons as well. Their bond grew stronger with each passing week. They would often spend time after the center's activities, discussing Daniel's dreams and aspirations. Mr. Carter listened intently, offering advice and encouragement. For Daniel, Mr. Carter became more than just a mentor. He filled a void that Daniel hadn't even realized was there. While Daniel's mother had always been his rock, there was something special about having a father figure to look up to. One Saturday afternoon, as they were cleaning up after a community event at the center, Mr. Carter placed a gentle hand on Daniel's shoulder. "You know, Daniel," he said, his voice filled with warmth, "I'm proud of you. Not just for returning my wallet that day, but for everything you've done since. You're a remarkable young man." Daniel felt a lump form in his throat, overwhelmed by the emotions those words stirred in him. He looked up at Mr. Carter, his eyes shining with gratitude and admiration. "Thank you, Mr. Carter," he said softly, "for everything." As the weeks turned into months, Daniel and Mr. Carter's bond grew stronger. They found themselves spending more time together, working on various projects at the community center. Mr. Carter saw in Daniel a young man with immense potential, while Daniel looked up to Mr. Carter as a mentor and father figure. One sunny Saturday morning, they were busy organizing a neighborhood cleanup event. Daniel watched in awe as Mr. Carter effortlessly coordinated volunteers and assigned tasks. "Daniel," Mr. Carter called out, "why don't you take charge of the group cleaning up the park?" Daniel's eyes widened. "Me? Are you sure?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. Mr. Carter smiled warmly. "I'm positive. You've got what it takes, son. Just remember to listen to your team and lead by example." Taking a deep breath, Daniel nodded and gathered his group. At first, he felt nervous, but as he started assigning tasks and working alongside his peers, he felt a new sense of confidence growing within him. Mr. Carter observed from a distance, his heart swelling with pride. He saw how Daniel encouraged his teammates, praised their efforts, and even found creative solutions to small problems that arose. It reminded him of his own early days in business. As the day progressed, Mr. Carter found himself reflecting on his life. He had achieved great success in his career, but something had always felt missing. Now, watching Daniel grow and helping guide him, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. After the event, as they sat on a bench enjoying some well-deserved lemonade, Mr. Carter turned to Daniel. "You did a fantastic job today, Daniel. You're a natural leader." Daniel beamed with pride. "Thanks, Mr. Carter. I learned from the best." Mr. Carter chuckled, feeling a warmth spread through his chest. "You know, Daniel, I may be teaching you about leadership and responsibility, but you're teaching me something too." "What's that?" Daniel asked, curiosity shining in his eyes. "You're reminding me of the joy of making a difference," Mr. Carter replied softly. "Sometimes, in the business world, it's easy to forget what really matters. But seeing you grow, seeing how our work here impacts the community, it's given me a new perspective on life. Daniel nodded thoughtfully, understanding the weight of Mr. Carter's words. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, both feeling grateful for the friendship they had found in each other. As the months passed, the impact of Daniel's honest act and the new community center began to ripple through the neighborhood. What was once a struggling area started to show signs of transformation, all sparked by a simple act of kindness. The community center, named Daniel's Place, became a hub of activity and hope. Children who once roamed the streets after school now had a safe place to study, play, and learn new skills. The center offered tutoring programs, art classes, and even basic computer skills workshops for adults looking to improve their job prospects. Mrs. Thompson, Daniel's mother, noticed the change in her daily walks to work. The streets seemed cleaner, and there was a newfound sense of pride among the residents. She often caught sight of neighbors picking up litter or tending to small garden patches that had sprung up along the sidewalks. Local businesses began to thrive as well. The increased foot traffic around the community center brought new customers to nearby shops. Mr. Johnson, who owned the corner store, found himself hiring an extra hand to keep up with the growing demand. The scholarship fund set up in Daniel's name was already making a difference. Sarah, a bright young girl from Daniel's school, had received the first scholarship. Her parents, who had always struggled to make ends meet, now had hoped that their daughter could pursue her dream of becoming a doctor. Even the local park, once neglected and avoided, was now filled with the sounds of children playing and families enjoying picnics. The cleanup efforts led by Daniel and Mr. Carter had inspired the community to take ownership of their shared spaces. As word spread about the positive changes in the neighborhood, more volunteers and resources poured in. A local tech company offered to donate computers to the community center, while a group of retired teachers volunteered their time for the tutoring program. Daniel, now in his early teens, watched these changes with a mixture of awe and humility. He never could have imagined that his decision to return a wallet would lead to such a profound transformation. Yet, as he walked through the bustling community center or helped younger kids with their homework, he felt a deep sense of pride and responsibility. As Daniel entered his final year of high school, he found himself standing at the threshold of a bright future. The once shy boy who had stumbled upon a wallet years ago had grown into a confident young man, respected by his peers and adored by his community. Every day after school, Daniel would spend time at the community center, helping younger kids with their homework or assisting with various programs. It was here, surrounded by the fruits of his simple act of kindness, that Daniel often pondered his future. One afternoon, as he sat in the center's library, Daniel's eyes fell upon a stack of college brochures. His heart raced with excitement and a touch of nervousness. College had always been a distant dream, but now, thanks to the scholarship fund bearing his name, it was within reach. Mrs. Thompson noticed her son's thoughtful expression as she entered the library. "What's on your mind, sweetheart?" she asked, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. Daniel looked up at his mother, his eyes shining with hope. "Mom, I think I want to study social work in college. I want to learn how to help communities like ours even more." Mrs. Thompson's eyes welled up with tears of pride. "Oh, Daniel," she said, pulling him into a warm embrace, "you've already done so much, and I know you'll do even more great things." Later that week, during one of their regular mentoring sessions, Daniel shared his aspirations with Mr. Carter. The businessman listened intently, a proud smile spreading across his face. "Daniel," Mr. Carter said, leaning forward in his chair, "I've watched you grow into an exceptional young man. Your dedication to this community is inspiring. Whatever path you choose, I have no doubt you'll make a significant impact." Encouraged by the support of his mother and Mr. Carter, Daniel threw himself into his college applications. He spent hours crafting essays about his experiences and his dreams for the future. Each word he wrote was filled with gratitude for the opportunities he'd been given and determination to create more opportunities for others. As Daniel worked toward his goals, he couldn't help but reflect on how far he'd come. The community center bustled with activity around him, a constant reminder of the power of one small act of kindness. He knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, he had the strength of his family, his mentor, and his entire community behind him. As the sun began to set on a warm summer evening, Daniel, his mother, and Mr. Carter gathered around a small table in the Thompsons' modest kitchen. The aroma of Mrs. Thompson's famous pot roast filled the air, mingling with the scent of freshly baked bread. Daniel couldn't help but smile as he looked at the two people who had been his biggest supporters. His mother, her eyes twinkling with pride, placed the steaming dish on the table. Mr. Carter, looking relaxed in casual attire, a far cry from his usual business suits, helped set out the plates. As they began to eat, a comfortable silence settled over the room. It was Mr. Carter who finally spoke, his voice filled with warmth. "You know, I never imagined that losing my wallet would lead to all of this," he said, gesturing around him. Mrs. Thompson nodded, reaching out to squeeze her son's hand. "Daniel's always had a good heart, but that day, when he decided to return your wallet, it changed everything for us." Daniel felt a lump form in his throat. "I was just doing what I thought was right," he said softly. "I never expected it to lead to all this." Mr. Carter leaned forward, his eyes serious. "That's exactly why it was so special, Daniel. You didn't do it for recognition or reward. You did it because it was the right thing to do." As they continued their meal, they reminisced about the past few years, the opening of the community center, Daniel's growth as a student and community leader, and the positive changes in their neighborhood. Daniel looked around the table, his heart full of gratitude. He saw the proud smile on his mother's face, the one she wore every time she looked at him. He saw the fatherly affection in Mr. Carter's eyes, a bond that had grown stronger with each passing year. "You know," Daniel said, his voice filled with emotion, "I used to think that returning the wallet was just a small thing. But now I see how it brought us all together, how it changed our lives." Mrs. Thompson wiped a tear from her eye. "It's amazing how one act of kindness can ripple out and touch so many lives," she said softly. Mr. Carter nodded in agreement. "And it's not over yet, Daniel. Your journey is just beginning." Daniel smiled, feeling a sense of warmth and purpose wash over him. He knew that whatever the future held, he had made a difference, and he was ready for whatever came next. If you enjoyed the story of Daniel and Mr. Carter, I've handpicked another story that will touch your heart. Please don't miss it, click here to read it.